All right, what's going on, everybody? This is JT from the Buckball Podcast. I have a special guest. This is Gene from Buck What You Heard. Gene, say what's up to the people.
How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, man. So I'm sure you've talked about this Bucks Bears game with a bunch of podcasts, and it's pretty much been talked about ad nauseum. But we're gonna go through it one more time, because it's just a different perspective from me and things like that. So, of course, one of the biggest things is the fire Mike Smith. What's your opinion on that? What's your take?
The reality of it all, Mike Smith is still the defensive coordinator here in Tampa. Jameis Winston is still your quarterback, and Dirk Cutter is still your head coach. You're going to have to ride this out. I know as much as people want him gone, there's not a lot we can do about it. To be honest, as fans, I know that everybody's upset. You just hope that they do better. But just the trends that I've seen from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the past years, I don't know. I just kind of have to take that wait and see approach because, you look at the games that they've lost and they've had serious blowouts over the past few years, and they have not done enough to consistently improve the defense.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is like this year it's like, okay, so we addressed the D-line, we addressed the secondary, and a lot of people forget that we addressed the secondary with a bunch of rookies. And then on top of that, we still have a 35-year-old Brent Grimes who, just on film, going back and watching, I'm not saying he's playing his best ball, but he's been a liability. And then at the same time, Brennan Hargraves is playing well, towards the end of last year, and he's out for the year. So that already puts you at a disadvantage. It doesn't matter how much you added to the defensive line, because even them as a unit haven't really produced the way you would think they would. JPP has played really well. He's been probably the most consistent defensive line player, but we haven't even seen a full 2-3 games of Vita Vea. Bo Allen's been injured. Noah Spence hasn't even played. So it's hard to say fire Mike Smith, without looking at the big picture. But at the same time, I do think that some of the position coaches aren't being held accountable underneath him. And I think that's where most of the frustration needs to be pointed towards.
For me, what I've seen is a lack of discipline, and that comes down to the players. Players have to play in their assignments. And there were a lot of times that you had players that were playing out of their assignments. Over the past years, there's just been communication issues, things that haven't been improved, and that's a reflection on your defensive coordinator. That's also a reflection on your head coach, just not getting the discipline in there. And you saw that in this Bears game. When you give up that specific route multiple times, you have a running back that's just running wild, out of the backfield. There's a lot of things that happen that shouldn't happen. And again, it just comes back to coaching. You look case in point, you look at the Rams. Once Jeff Fisher was gone and they got somebody in there who if they actually knew what to do with the personnel, things changed. You look at Mike Smith's defense, it's archaic. It's not about stopping the run, it's about stopping the pass.
Right.
And
everything's in front of you. Yeah, exactly.
So again, you got to make adjustments. And there just have not been adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. They played better than in the beginning of the season. They played a little bit better than what you saw last year, getting 3 and outs and getting the ball back to the offense. But when you're getting shredded, through the air, these things have to be there has to be adjustments made, and these things have to change.
Yep. So and honestly, because I do go back and I watch the all 22. Sometimes I watch it once, and then I'll watch the condensed game a couple times. I can honestly say, and I'm no expert, but the Bucs have played one full game of quality defense, and that's not even in the same game. It's the first half of the Eagles game and the second half of the Steelers game. And that's just it's just unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable. And you're absolutely right. Discipline is a big part of it because in the middle of a game, of course, the game plan is always going to change, especially if you get down 21-0, things like that.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the offense in a minute, of course, but the biggest thing is we lost, 48-10. So we're going to talk about the defense the most. The offense isn't getting cut no slack because Ryan Fitzpatrick was throwing off his base and everything like that, and he was being inaccurate like he was the Steelers game. But it's just it is simply unacceptable that you get fooled by the same play on the different side of the field 2 or 3 times. That damn out and up wheel route, whatever you want to call it, we got burned. That was pretty much 3 touchdowns on almost the same play. I mean, it's almost the same play, different scheme, but it's almost the same play. And it's just amazing to me that these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, whether the players are experienced or rookies or not, putting them in a position to where they're not going to get fooled. And maybe I'm not going to say the players shouldn't play to their instincts. That's not what I'm saying. But you shouldn't play to your instincts whenever you're down that much. You should the coaches should step in and say, look, guys, if you see this, do not bite on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of have to go back to last year. Julio Jones, I think he had like 250-something yards against the Bucs, and the Bucs defense was predictable then. I heard somebody from the Bears mention how predictable the defense is. That's a problem. That's a problem that didn't get fixed last year, and it didn't. It looks like you're looking at a lot of the same this year. So, I'm not giving up on the season. There's still a lot of football to be played.
Oh, of course not.
But at the same time, though, I'm being realistic about this and just looking at the track record and kind of what happened last year. You're looking at almost an instant replay of last year. The Buccaneers start out 2-1, and then they go on a 5-game losing streak. And here you have the Bucs are right now 500. They hit the bye. Can they bounce back and win that game against the Atlanta Falcons? I mean, that's the big question. And a lot of it is these guys doing self-observation, saying, hey, look in the mirror. Can we do this? And they have the talent to do it. But it's just a question of, will it happen?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I was after that game, I kind of went into full fan mode to where I was, everyone's thinking, oh, okay, you guys, come on, we're 2-2. Like, nobody expected us to be this. It's like, I'm a realist. It's just the way I am. That might be a negative because I'm a realist, but we're 2-2 because we had 2 amazing games. We almost lost both of the first 2 games. If you really look at them, as good as the offense played, there was still multiple opportunities for us to lose those games. Now, the Steelers game, there was an opportunity for us to win the game, but that's not the point. We're 2-2, and nobody expected us to be 2-2, so that's great. But looking at it as a big picture, I mean, this bye week couldn't have come at a better time. You're talking about 2 weeks of preparation, 2 weeks of getting healthy, and you're going against an Atlanta defense that is missing 3 of their key starters. And going back to last year, when we were missing a bunch of our starters, it was the same problem. The defense still had to step up, and Atlanta hasn't been able to step up. So if the Bucs do not improve and make adjustments this bye week and 2 weeks of preparation, I'm really worried. I'm really worried. If we come out Atlanta and we look flat, if we do not move the ball in the beginning of the game and keep up with Atlanta, because Atlanta can score points at will. It doesn't matter. They're an NFC South team, and they are going to score points no matter what. But if the defense doesn't make some type of adjustments, whether it be coaching or the players calling like player-only meetings, like, hey, look, guys, what is wrong with us? Let's get our communication down. That's what I'm most looking forward to. I know that the offense can put up points. Now, whether that means they start early or not, because, Jameis does have that tendency to come out and start flat, and then, you get behind 2 or 3 scores and you make the game one-dimensional. I'm looking forward to a different scheme, something. Just give me something to show that you're making improvements. And I know that you have a young secondary, and the defensive line is going to get healthier. You might get Bo Allen back. Vita Vea only played 34 snaps last week, and he actually looked like he was getting some penetration. And even though he was getting penetration, that was the whole thing was, okay, you put Vita Vea next to Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy can now get on these one-on-ones. Gerald McCoy wasn't winning a lot of one-on-ones from the film that I was watching. I mean, aside from one or two, but I mean, I'm just looking forward to improvements. That's all I'm looking forward to. I'm not calling this a lost season whatsoever, but we have to show something.
Yeah, most definitely. Again, and to your point, you have to see improvement game after game. That's the whole key. I'm seeing mistakes that should have been corrected in minicamp, in
Right.
regular training camp, in OTAs. These are things that you go through and prepare for the season, and you're seeing those types of plays and those types of mistakes, and you can't have that. But and again, Levante David and Quan Alexander both they made plays that you wouldn't expect from them, and again, they just get self-evaluation. What are you doing out there? How can you get better? And they're consummate professionals, so I expect bigger things from them. And the good thing is you've got a Mitch Unrein that should be coming back pretty soon. You've got Kendall Beckwith that should be coming back pretty soon. It's good to see Vita Vea out there, first game of the season. It's good for him to go back and work on some things and kind of get himself acclimated to the NFL, the speed of the NFL. I do expect big things from him, and as we move forward, and again, this is one of those things that this coaching staff that we're seeing, they really need to get it together because they can all be gone by the end of the season. So whatever it is they need to do, they need to figure it out real soon. And that's just kind of what I saw. The first 4 games overall, two wins, and then you had 2 losses. Let's see what the Bucs do. Moving forward.
Right. Yeah, and well, when I was watching this game, and I watched the whole thing because no matter how much I wanted to turn it off and just go to NFL Red Zone and watch the rest of the league, I had to watch it. Just no matter what happened, I wanted to see if we can at least do something. And when I was watching this game, all I kept saying in my head was mismatch, miscommunication, mismatch, miscommunication. That popped up in my head so many times during this game. And honestly, I'm sorry to say, MJ Stewart, him being in the slot, I'm not saying that he's going to be a bad player. I'm not saying any of that. He's very young, but he doesn't have the athleticism, I think, to play slot corner. I don't think he's as quick twitch as the job requires, because you put Taylor Gabriel on MJ Stewart, it wasn't even a match. And you put, Tariq Cohen, he does that little whenever the Bears were in the red zone, and I don't remember if it was a second or third touchdown, but it was that little out and in, where the running back goes out and in, and then it's like Levante David or Quan Alexander on the running back. He's too shifty for either of them also. So, I mean, even if Levante David played it perfectly.
That was scheme. That was scheme and miscommunication.
Exactly. Scheme and miscommunication.
People not being in their playing in their assignments. I love MJ Stewart. I love Carlton Davis. I think they're going to be just fine. And I can't, they're young, but I can't put all this on them.
No,
again,
I know.
What you're looking at is when you have somebody like a Chris Conte, and people trash Chris Conte all they want, but there are things that Chris Conte does that helps the secondary, getting them in their place where they need to be.
Exactly.
Chris Conte, he makes plays away from the ball, and these are things that, we see him get drugged. We saw the stiff arm. We saw this other stuff. I realize that Chris Conte is an average safety in the NFL, in the grand scheme of the NFL. However, this guy gets people where they need to be, gets people in their assignments, and he does a lot of stuff that you don't see on camera. You just, unless you're looking at all 22 and you're watching what's going on, and you have some idea of what's going on, you kind of see that. Vernon Hargraves is another guy. Does a lot of the same stuff, but that doesn't get mentioned. These guys get trashed. These guys have been getting trashed 6 ways to Sunday, and I'm telling you, Vernon Hargraves, had he not gotten injured, I expected him to have a monster season this year. So
Oh, I know.
Again, it's next man up. We can't talk about shoulda, coulda, woulda, and you just kind of have to look at it the way it is. These guys are going to have to get that in, get that experience, and just these are all learning things, and get out there and try to make plays. I don't know. I think I'm still convinced that Brent Grimes is shaking the rust off, from the groin injury and stuff. So again, it's just these things
Yeah,
happen. You
definitely.
kind of have to move forward. Let's see what they come up with come the next week against the Atlanta Falcons. That's a game I'll definitely be watching because quietly as it's kept, the Bucs could easily be 2-0 in the division. If they win this game. So again, there's a lot to play for. The season's not lost, and there's still a lot of potential here. The defense just kind of has to figure it out and make some plays.
Yep, that you're exactly right. And to your Brent Grimes point, when you're 35 years old and you're coming back from a groin injury, I don't know. I've never had a groin injury, but I can imagine that it's
You
it's
can't
pretty
even
rough.
walk. I don't know. I don't even know how he runs.
Yeah. So
It's happened to me, and I can promise you, it what takes you like maybe 5 seconds to get to the door takes you like 5 minutes to get to the door just because of the excruciating pain that you're in.
right.
And
So
let me tell you, so people that talk about this, he should be able to shake it off. You never had one, so you just don't know. But
right, exactly.
my props to him for being out there playing. And as you get older, it just takes a little bit longer to heal these injuries. The Bucs are taking care of these players, and making sure that they're 100% healthy before they get them back out on the field.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you can't really. I mean, that's my other point. Like we said earlier, the whole fire Mike Smith squad that everyone's going on. I understand it. I do. I get it. But I mean, this is the first time you gave Mike Smith a quality defensive line, and even if they're not getting that much pressure, I mean, the secondary is still young with Brent Grimes coming back from that groin injury. So before I close the book on the Brent Grimes chapter, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let things play out. I'm a realist. But then you go on Twitter and you start seeing these things like, oh, Brent Grimes. I think they talked him out of retirement. I think he's just going through the motions. It's like that's complete bullshit. Brent Grimes, he hasn't played amazingly well, even going back to last year to this year. But I mean, come on, you're basically calling this guy not a competitor. I mean, you can't say that. Brent Grimes was an undrafted guy. He made his money in this league by competing every week and beating out people who thought he couldn't beat out. People had this guy wrote off. So I'm not going to close the book on him. And Carlton Davis, he's took his lumps and things like that. So I'm not going to close the book on this young secondary. And even if it does end up being a long season where they do give up a ton of yardage, these guys are still talented. They brought them in for a reason. And then on top of that, they're just rookies. So what I want to do is, since we're pretty much done talking about the overall summary of the game, I just want to dive into Ryan Fitzpatrick. The beginning of this game, I just thought that when the pressure started coming, the Bucs were facing a 3-4 defense the second week in a row. Whenever Ryan Fitzpatrick started feeling that pressure coming, he was making throws that were just off the mark that he normally wasn't missing the first two games.
Yeah, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, a lot of that I think you can kind of attribute to the offensive line as well.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we're disguising the blitzes, and you're talking about going up against a once in a generation player in Khalil Mack, who's a game wrecker. He's a game wrecker. So again, there are a lot of anomalies that I saw. Again, they can bounce back from this. This offense can bounce back and get back in there. I think he's a good quarterback. I've always thought he was a good quarterback, but he's never had the quality of talent around him to really do things.
Of course.
And you can see what he can do when he has time and those schemes are there. The past 2 weeks, however, the offensive schemes have been different compared to the first 2 weeks. And, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I really believe that Dirk Cutter has kind of pulled the reins away from Todd Monken somewhat. People are going to say, oh, it's Todd Monken calling the plays. I don't know about that. The things look different to me these last 2 games as compared to the first 2 games. So I don't know. I guess as the season goes on, we'll get a better idea of, where this play calling is coming from. So, that's my take on it right there. And I didn't see a reason to pull Fitz. I would have kept him in and just, worked on protection for him, rolled him out a little bit and let him make some throws, But I would not have brought Jameis Winston in to this game, into this disaster. And I would have kept him fresh for the Atlanta Falcons game.
Right. Yeah. The funny thing was when I was going back and watching the game, as we were down, 14-0, 21-0, things like that, the play calling didn't seem to change. It didn't seem to adjust. I mean, of course, you could say you're down 21-0, you have to throw it vertically. But, I mean, the Bucs they had drives. They had drives that were sustaining aside from like a hold here or a Fitzpatrick overthrow there. They had plenty of chances, but it seemed to me like whenever the pressure was coming, the Bucs were still throwing these 14, 15-yard, like long developing routes. And that just seems to me like that's what Dirk Cutter used to do. Whenever the Bucs would be down. Yeah, it felt like very Dirk Cuttery game to where there's nothing underneath, something to get the defensive line. They got all these exotic blitzes coming, and then you got Khalil Mack. It seems to me like you try to hit him with a screen here and there to try to make him respect you, to maybe
misdirection because this is a fast that's a fast defense. They over pursue, and there are opportunities there to run misdirection or something to get these guys thinking. So I don't know. It's just something that's just been like really crazy to try to figure out what's going on here. But again, it's just one of those things where you have to really kind of go back to the drawing board and look at things and see if you can actually find those mistakes and correct those mistakes.
Well, that's what that 2-week bye is for. So let's get into the running game real quick. So again, going against a 3-4 defense, and the offensive line has not played well the past 2 weeks. I mean, the first 2 weeks they were dynamite. They were dynamite. I mean, they were making there was
the run wasn't a big requirement.
It wasn't.
Those first few games.
Yeah, and then yeah. So basically, the first 2 games they were running it only to keep the balance going. And this is what I noticed. This is kind of a trend. This is what happens when you watch film. The first quarter running is way better than the rest of the 3 quarters. Like it'll be like a Peyton Barber 10-yard run, 12-yard run here or there, and then they'll go away from it, and then it just kind of stops working. And I haven't been able to really dissect and understand why.
It's because they've gone away from the run. The run is not. A lot of what they're doing is they're going with what's working, and they're just not running the ball. They're not consistently dedicated to running the ball, and that's what you're seeing. Is they run it here and there. You can't get somebody consistent if you're running the ball here and then you may go away from the run for a little bit. The one thing that I will tell you, and you can kind of watch this team, is the New Orleans Saints. With Ingram coming back to the Saints from suspension, you're going to see a different dynamic. You're going to see a different dynamic.
They're going to dial Breeze's throws down, definitely.
Yeah. And again, there are opportunities that the Bucs, they have out there. They're just not making the most of it. I would be committed to the run. using the run in the red zone is something that I talked about at the beginning of the season. We haven't seen it, and I don't really expect to see it. Again, it's the offense, it's the offensive play calling, and it just goes back to last year. And I've seen this movie before. The Bucs have to turn this around. Bucs have to figure out a way to make this work. They have to. This is it right here. Dirk Cutter has got to show. He's got to show. Hey, I'm the man. This is my job. I got to make this work.
Yep.
They're half-assing this right now. They have to be able to make adjustments. And I do believe 100%, the more I watch it and the more I see that Dirk Cutter's calling the plays. I don't think Todd Monken's calling the plays. What you saw was a lot of things that were different. You saw a lot of innovations in the run. You saw plays being made underneath. You saw a quarterback that was taking what the defense gives them and making plays and extending drives. But again, you're seeing a totally different offense compared to what you saw the last time.
Yeah, it was more conservative, it felt like.
Yeah, and that's to my point.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, let's say like down in the red zone, running the ball in the red zone is to me personally, that's something that teams do when they've been running it good all game. And let's just say like that's the team's identity. Like we're gonna take your will from you. We're gonna run it in the red zone, and we're gonna get in, and whether you like it or not, that's not the Bucs game. So when the Bucs go down in the red zone and they run it a couple times, I'm always confused because I'm like, you have a 6'6" OJ Howard, a 6'5" Mike Evans. You got Cam Brate that catches everything thrown his way. You got a Deshaun Jackson you can throw in the slot. I mean, we don't have running backs that catch out the backfield. But I mean, the creativity in the red zone is baffling to me because if you watch games from around the league, it's mind-boggling. Like, why don't the Bucs incorporate? Like, you can watch plays from the Falcons, from the Saints, from the Eagles, whatever. You watch them in the red zone, and you think like, why isn't my team incorporating some of these plays? It's almost like, okay, we're in the red zone. Let's just see if this works. If it don't, we'll kick a field goal. And I hate that. I hate that about my team.
Because they're stubborn. And again, it goes back to what I was saying.
This team has
made adjustments in certain positions. I really do believe that if Dirk Cutter is calling the plays at the beginning of the season, the Bucs don't win those two games. I really believe that. And it's just that's Dirk Cutter's playbook that Monken is using. And he's making the most of it. I just feel like teams have caught on. You have two full games of game film. You can game plan this. Now you see again it goes conservative. It looked nothing like what it did in the first two games.
Exactly.
And again, and you could tell the way the players are reacting that there's more to this. And so I don't know. This is just an observation.
You might be on something.
I could be way off on this, but I just feel like this team has come out flat offensively the last two games, and it just doesn't feel like the first two games that we saw. So I don't think Dirk Cutter was calling plays in the Steelers game. I really don't because there was a lot of plays where it was like you wouldn't see Dirk Cutter call that. But it was just bad throws by Fitzpatrick. He had one of them coming back to earth games. But this game, it definitely felt like it. And you really might be onto something. I mean, after that Steelers game, who knows? Dirk Cutter might have been like, okay, you won the Steelers game. You won the Eagles game, Monken. You won the Saints game, Monken. But after the Steelers game, Dirk Cutter might be so scared for his job, he might have took it back. I don't know. But to me, it wasn't. He's never been. Dirk Cutter's never been effective calling the plays. He just hasn't.
Well,
the defense isn't doing him any favors either.
Yeah, I'm not saying because obviously Dirk Cutter knows more about football and he's probably forgot more about football than I will ever know. So I can't pull the rug out from underneath him and saying like you're a shitty play caller, a shitty head coach, whatever. But at the same time, whenever things become like a trend you kind of have to notice things. And when I watched this Bears game, even when they were still in the game, down 14, it seemed like there was no balls. This team had no backbone. It seemed like there was no aggressiveness. I know there was pressure, blah blah blah. But even when there was no pressure, Ryan Fitzpatrick was off his mark. But it still seemed like the same play designs that Dirk would call in those situations.
Yeah, it's his playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah,
and
I don't know.
So,
again, it remains to be seen. I'm not gonna, like you said, I'm not gonna get too far into it or read anything into it right now. But they have to make adjustments. They have to make changes. And now you have Jameis Winston coming in as your starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons game. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, and on top of that, the thing I was most excited for. So whenever the Bucs were on their 2-game stretch where they were lighting it up, I was like, man, this offensive line is playing amazing. Todd Monken's calling these plays, and unfortunately, you have to defend your team to people at work, and they're like, all I heard all this damn time, especially on Twitter, if you put Jameis Winston back in, you guys are going to lose. Like, you need to leave Ryan Fitzpatrick in, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, Jameis has not played behind his O-line, and in the preseason, he lit it up, and he has not played with the play calling of Todd Monken. And that's been my most exciting thing to look forward to, whether it was the Bears game or whether it was the Falcons game. That's what I'm most excited to look forward to. Like, we have not seen a Jameis that has been sitting on the bench, just watching film, just working and ready. And I have not been able to. I'm just so excited to watch him play behind this line and this play calling, if it's still Todd Monken calling the plays.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That you're definitely onto something there. Like I said, it remains to be seen. We'll know pretty soon. Where this team is. I've always said, you can tell 6 games in how a team is going to roll out through the rest of the season.
Right.
Because
right.
you have tendencies where you see trends. You see teams that go on 4-game winning streaks and then they crash and burn through the rest of the season.
Oh yeah.
You see teams that start out 0-3 and then they catch fire and they roll out through the rest of the season. So it's always good to wait those 6 games and get an idea of what your team's really about. Because that's enough game film to tell you, what patterns you're seeing, what kind of behaviors you're seeing. It's not about big plays. It's about consistent. It's got to be about consistent. Are they consistently good? Are they consistently bad? Are they consistently mediocre?
Right. Yeah. That September is always the measuring stick. I mean, you always
to me, I look more October, November, especially for the Bucs, because they can't start out high. Especially October. October has not been kind to the Bucs over the past couple of seasons. So
neither has primetime games.
One of those things. Yeah. I'm glad we got all that out of our systems and that whole Ring of Honor thing. Hopefully, there's not another Ring of Honor game for another couple of years.
Can we get a win for somebody on their damn Ring of Honor? Can we just get a win?
Doug Williams. I think the Bucs play Falcons. Doug Williams Ring of Honor game.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, man, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not consistent.
And you hate to say it because every year is a different year, every team's a different team, blah blah blah. But I'm sorry, a trend is a trend. The Bucs do not win when the lights are the brightest. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. It doesn't matter who's at head coach. It doesn't matter. The Bucs do not win in prime time. And honestly, whenever I seen the schedule come out this year, and we had one primetime game, the rest of them are 1:00, I was like, good, great. I love it. Because at least at week 10, if we're actually a good team and we do play on prime time when they're allowed to flex schedules, at least we'll have more of a confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
again, man, like I said, there's a lot of football to be played, and this is just kind of the beginning. It just looks so familiar to last year that I'm not going to hold my breath for anything, to be honest.
Right.
Just kind of have to wait and see what they do if they want it. And sometimes teams just don't want it. Like last year, they didn't want it. They were fine with, I know the injuries occurred or whatever, but at the same time, this is where coaches are supposed to make adjustments. get the most out of players and play to players' strengths and not their weaknesses. And that's what you expect to see from head coaches. The
Right.
great ones make adjustments.
Yep.
You know.
Well, whether it's in the second quarter, third quarter, or halftime, and a lot of people forget, especially guys at work. I have a bunch of Atlanta Falcons fans at work. I don't know how or why, but they just seem to be there. And I live in Florida.
They love their empty trophy case.
Oh yeah, it's lovely. I love that 28-3. That 28-3 will never get old. But people forget that the Falcons started off 5-0 the year before they went to the Super Bowl. The Falcons started off 5-0. They looked like the team of the team to beat in the NFC, and then they slid down the stretch and went. I believe it was 8-8. Well, the next year they went to the Super Bowl. So just because the Bucs started off hot and they had a couple doozies, whatever, that doesn't mean that the Bucs still can't catch on, make adjustments, and get right. Especially after, man, imagine this. Imagine we end up, we're 2-2 right now. Imagine we beat the Falcons. Now we're 3-2 with a 2-0 division lead. It's a whole different season. Just this Bears loss. If this Bears loss wasn't a 48-10 whooping, and let's just say the Bears won by 3 points, barely losing to the Steelers last week, and the Bears have an amazing defense, would you still be as upset with this team, or would it still be kind of like, hey, we're still 2-2, and then on top of that, the division isn't playing amazingly well. I mean, the Saints have been, but the Falcons and Panthers, I mean, that's a toss-up.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point. I just kind of go by trends. And this year, I said it's about wins and losses. I mean, if you watch my podcast, that's all I've been talking about. It's wins and losses. I don't care what statistics say. I don't care where the Bucs are ranked. I don't care about power rank. It's wins and losses. It's time for this team to go to the playoffs. It's long overdue. There's so much mismanagement, and you've got a squad, and there's not a lack of talent on this team. There just isn't. These guys, whether it's coaching, whether it's want to, whether it's coming together and putting everything together and making it work. This defense can be better than what it is.
Yep.
Whether it's the scheme or whether it's communication, whatever it is that needs to get fixed, it needs to get fixed.
Yeah.
And this is your roster right now. You got to make it work in order to get somewhere in the season.
Well, see, here's the deal. So we are, we're 2-2 right now. That's all fine and dandy. All you have to do is win your division to get in the playoffs. That's it. And if you look at last year, even as bad as the Falcons were, the Falcons and the Panthers got in at 10-6. The Bucs can only lose 4 more games, I believe. Like they could, I believe honestly in my heart of hearts that the Bucs can only get in the playoffs unless they're 10-6 or better. I mean, of course we want better, but 10-6 is the most. So they can only lose 4 more games. Dirk Cutter has to know this. I'm sure he knows this. I'm sure that's way beyond his thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's way out of his mind. But you've had 2 losses to where one loss was you barely lost to the Steelers, and one loss was a horrible loss to the Bears. Right. You can still lose 4 more times and probably make it to the playoffs in this division, in this conference. And that has to be the biggest booster, the confidence booster. Like, look, guys, you had a bad game. This is a long season. I agree with you. Wins and losses matter, but you have to work with what you got. I honestly think that this team can be 10-6 at least. And I know that Jameis has not came in and started off hot every single game. And the games that he does play,
it's another reason. Like I said, that's just not to cut you off, but that's a big reason why I would not have started him. Right. I would have put in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'd have let him ride it out. He's a professional. I mean, that's just kind of where I would be.
Yeah, you know what? You got us in this predicament. Take your lumps the rest of the game, and let's keep Jameis Winston healthy.
Yeah. So again, the defense just cannot be a liability. I don't expect them to be the 2002, 2003 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but don't be the liability. give your offense a chance to win games, and don't put them in a bad situation. And that's what to me is very important, and I think that gets missed. The defense last year was a liability, and we saw that a lot. So I don't know, man. Again, I'm confident to just kind of sit back and watch and see what happens.
Right.
You root for this team no matter who the head coach is.
I root for the name on the front of the jersey. Yep.
Yeah. So
and I'm sorry not to cut you off, but the funny thing is man, Twitter is a wonderful place for information and stats and things like that. But there is all kinds of just misinformation and people jumping off the ledge and just like season's doom, blah blah blah.
You gotta limit who you deal with. I mean, I limit who I deal with, and I don't have a problem blocking people.
Oh, I hear you. Just let me get to what I was trying to say. I've seen so much, pretty much doom and gloom about the season being done after that Bears loss that it's come to Jameis Winston being around next year talk. Look, I'm sorry, as a Bucs fan, aside from the off the field issues, I don't care if Jameis Winston has 2 turnovers a game. He's still better than any quarterback we've had. What in the last Jesus Christ ever? As far as talent goes, people want to jump ship. Excuse me. People want to jump ship already. Like, okay, if the Bucs have this record, we should draft this quarterback. It's like, are you crazy? Are you even listening to yourself talk right now? How long have you waited to have a quarterback? Are you telling me you can't win a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston?
Bro,
Blake
talk, man.
Yeah, Blake Bortles got an extension. Matthew Stafford has been a stat machine, but he's also been a turnover machine, and they haven't had a great record with him. He got an extension. Like, what are you guys talking about? Are you really ready to move on from the best thing you've had in forever? I just think, like, man, I don't understand. I don't understand it because Bucs fans, to me, I understand we have some great, amazing fans, and we go through a lot of stuff. We've been through a lot of turmoil, a lot of bad seasons, a lot of bad coaches, a lot of bad players. But you're ready to give up on the best glimmer of hope you've had in, 15 years? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Dude, I let people talk. This team is going to do what they're going to do. I know that a lot of people are still tripping about the draft. A lot of people aren't happy because their guy didn't get picked. And, to me, that's nonsense. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change that. You might as well just kind of move on and deal with the players that you have right now. But, again, my philosophy has always been fans are going to root for teams how they want to. I'm not going to criticize anybody for how they root for the team, but, please don't bring that nonsense to me. And that's pretty much how I view this. So I see a lot of crazy stuff, and I just keep on swiping up, man. I'm like, okay, I saw it. That's crazy. I'll move on.
Yeah, next.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You go ahead.
Well, no, I was saying, as far as the who should have picked two nonsense. Of course, I'm a Florida State fan. I have been since I was 2 years old. I've been decked out in Florida State gear. I got pictures of me in Florida State gear. Now, I get attacked personally because I wanted to draft Derwin James. And right now, honestly, it probably wouldn't have been a bad pick considering how bad our secondary has been. Yeah, I know. He's not here. So, but, I mean, if you think about it, either way, if Derwin James comes in here, you still don't know how this coaching staff's going to use him. Just because he's having the success he's having with the Chargers doesn't mean he's going to have the success with the Bucs, but he's not here. And now that's my next point. Vita Vea, the 34 snaps he played, and I really tried to dial in, he was getting some damn pressure, man. He looked really, really good. And if he would have played, let's say, from the first game all until now, just with the 34 snaps that I've seen, I think the Derwin James to the Bucs chatter would have been a lot less, a lot more quiet. And that's coming from a Florida State fan who wanted Derwin James.
Yeah. I don't have a dog in the race. I went to University of Kansas myself.
Exactly.
So I don't have a dog in the race where I wouldn't involve my college thoughts on one player or another. To be very honest, I
Right.
think that's kind of foolish to
Yeah,
do that.
there's no
But
reason
what?
to think he would use him the right way he's supposed to be used anyway. So it doesn't
Right,
matter.
right. And again, you have a player like Vita Vea. I believe that he's going to be a quality player. And
Oh
you
yeah,
can quote me on this. People can come back and roast me 3 years down the line. But I think that's what the Bucs need right there on that defensive line. I think that they will find a way, getting pressure on the quarterback. There's not a whole lot of different plays that you can dial up for a defensive lineman where they just go hunt the quarterback. And collapse the middle of the pocket is going to be something that you definitely want to see.
Right.
Again, the edge rushers, JPP, Vinny Curry's been playing well as well. Again, it just comes down to cohesiveness, getting all these guys healthy. Bo Allen, didn't have Bo Allen for that Chicago Bears game. I think Bo Allen comes back healthy. You have Vita Vea in there, and then you'll kind of get an idea of what this defensive line was meant to look like originally. So, I know with the injuries, it's frustrating for fans not getting to see everybody that was expected to play.
Yeah,
we haven't even talked about Mitch Unrein, and again, I talk about Kendall Beckwith as another guy that the Bucs have sorely missed. There is the potential that we could have Chris Conte back by the end of towards the end of the season, and again, you kind of get an idea of what he does. It's not live on TV, and I know a lot of people may try to roast me for this, but he does a lot of stuff away from the ball. So I expect big things from him.
Yeah. Just and people that don't watch film, I'm not gonna say the average fan is stupid, but I do watch the film. I'm not saying I'm no expert, but players make plays even when they don't make the tackle or the sack or the pick or the interception or the pass deflection. Making a play is being on your dude at the same time. That's just part of it.
Yeah, my suggestion to fans is to watch if you're watching game film or watching all 22 or watching the condensed version, look at the play away from the ball. Look at what's going on away from where the ball is, because a lot of people follow the ball and that's what they know. But look at the overall game and just kind of get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever read the book. It's by Pat Kerwin. He's a SiriusXM analyst, but it's called "Take Your Eye Off the Ball by Knowing Where to Look," and he says that all throughout the book. Pretty much, you're watching the ball as a common fan, and you want to see what's happening. It's like, no, watch the line, watch the shifts, watch the safety come and patting the linebacker on the back. Like, what's that about? What's going on there? And then you see this plays being made, and it opens your eyes to it kind of educates yourself as a fan, so you don't go into watching the game. Like my biggest thing is trying to talk football to people at work, and they say like, oh, they just suck. I was like, could you explain why? Do you have a do you have a breakdown?
You can't have quality conversations with people.
Oh man, it's horrible. It's brutal, man.
You pick your battles. You kind of have to walk away at times.
It's tough, dude. It's very, very tough. And it pissed me off too, because a lot of people were saying like, okay, I'm not trying to go back to this Derwin James conversation, but while Derwin's making plays, excuse me, and Vea is injured, all people were saying was bust. How can you say bust on something you haven't seen yet? How? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just Derwin James, the hamstring of his kind of concerns me. We'll kind of see. I do monitor him, just like I monitor Mariota. I monitor some of these other players that are out there. And again, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to sit back and let everything work itself out and kind of see how everything goes.
Right. So I'm not going to try to. I just want to talk about a few things here. I do plan on doing a full Falcons pre-game show type deal, but the theme of this show to me was mismatch and miscommunication. And when we do play the Falcons, I'm looking kind of ahead here. But Devontae Freeman's been out; he's been injured. Their running back Ito Smith, he's been playing well. But when you talk about mismatches, Calvin Ridley has really stolen the show from Julio Jones. He's been a mismatch all over the field, and teams have not had an answer for him. And this is one of the things that I have circled in my kind of pregame notes, even though it's 2 weeks away. This is one of the things I have circled is this guy is making defenses look silly all over the place the past couple of weeks. How are the Bucs going to stop him? And you have Austin Hooper, the tight end. The Falcons have a solid O-line. They don't have the most amazing O-line, but they have a solid O-line. And then on top of that, the thing you want to look forward to is the Falcons are missing 3 of their defensive starters pretty much for the year. And that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to. Aside from Julio Jones, I know he's going to get his touches. I want to see who's on him, whether it's Calvin Ridley or Brent Grimes. Of course, Brent Grimes is going to have 2 weeks to get even more healthy, whether he wasn't already 100% before. I'm looking forward to seeing who's on him, whether it's going to be Carlton Davis, Brent Grimes, or however.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This game, I haven't got to watch a lot of Atlanta Falcons. I'm not a huge fan of the Atlanta Falcons at all. I mean, if I had to say there was a team more that I really dislike, it would be the Dallas Cowboys and then the Atlanta Falcons in that order. But just watching them and getting familiar with them, I'll have time this weekend to look at the film on them and see what's going on. I think they've just run up on some really good teams, and they're somebody that can catch fire at any time. And
oh yeah, definitely.
You have it's one of those things. You have a quarterback like like you have with Matty Ice, and he
can't count him out. You can't count him out.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And the Bucs have been on the business end of blowouts from the Atlanta Falcons. So it's just one of those things. They really have to be focused. They really have to be able to make adjustments. And if something isn't working, be able to go away from it and do something that is working. And
right.
This is wishful thinking for me because I know that Mike Smith is going to do what Mike Smith does. So. Again, where these guys are coaching for their jobs right now. So let's just hope, as fans, that they figure it out.
Right. And we might not have O.J. Howard for that game.
No, we're out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, because he said out to 2 to 3 weeks. So obviously they're not going to bring him back immediately. Even if he's ready to play, they probably won't. But their defensive line, Tack McKinley, he's been beasting, man. He has been beasting. But I do want to go back to something you said about Dallas Cowboys. It's funny you brought that up because I was just talking about that to a coworker. It's like the Dallas Cowboys, they're America's team, blah blah blah. That you can say that.
No,
they get as much coverage as the Patriots, even when they don't win. It's like let's just say a team beats the Cowboys like handedly, like whoops them, just straight destroys them. They're gonna talk about more of how the Cowboys lost the game than how the other team won the game. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That drives me absolutely crazy.
No, I just don't like their fans. That's probably the biggest part of it, to be very honest. No, they're just a team I don't care for, from the owner on down to the water boy. I just don't care for that team.
Man, no love for anyone, huh?
No.
Well, I will say one thing. Dez caught that ball in Green Bay, and that's all I'll say. That's the only love they'll get from me. That's it.
The ref said he didn't, so I'm good with that, and I'm more than happy to tell people that too. So.
No static, huh? No static. All right, man.
No. That's what it shows in the stat books right there.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's in black and white. There's no gray area, and that's what I'm going with, huh?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, man. Well, I think that's going to do it for this Bucs Bears podcast. I hope me and you get together later on, maybe in a couple weeks. We'll try to get on for some pregame Atlanta Falcons. I'm looking forward to watching the Falcons versus Steelers to get a gauge on how they'll play against a team that we already played, see how well they do. But overall,
most definitely, man. I tell you what, fans can't jump out the window, man. There's still a lot of football to be played.
Oh, I know. Dude.
People have been complaining. We're complaining all season that football wasn't here. So here we are, man. I mean, let's get out here and enjoy these games. On top of that, I mean,
I'm not trying to keep beating the same damn drum, but I mean, imagine if the slate that we were up against, the Saints, the Eagles, the Steelers, I mean, even the Bears defense, nobody knew what it was going to be at the beginning of the season. But I mean, who thought you'd be 2-2? Come on, guys. Are you just looking for something to bitch about? Imagine if we would have lost the Saints, Eagles, and Steelers game and the Bears, and we'd have been 0-4. I mean, what would the fan base, what would the pulse of the fan base be then? It would have been complete chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 2-2.
Yeah, I'd have had to open up my crisis hotline again for these.
Oh yeah, dude. There would have been the hotline would have been ringing off the hook. But anyways, man, that's gonna do it for today's show with me and you. I do hope me and you get together again. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Yeah, it was cool talking about it. You know, that's I never get sick of talking football, and yeah, just let me know. You know, I'll be glad to come on and chop it up with you a little bit.
Okay, man. Do you wanna let the people know what you maybe have coming up? Maybe you got something coming up with a special guest. Go ahead. Tell the people.
All right. You can catch me on Saturday on Tan Talk Radio. I'll be on with Peter Blake and Sean the Sports Don. I have the Bucs What You Heard hour at 5:00 Eastern. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll definitely put that phone number out there so people can call in and you know, just talk about the game and talk about what's going on, you know, with this team. And I love the phone calls and, you know, just say, hey, I'm checking it out on Twitter or whatever. I will probably be up on Periscope just going live with this just so that people will get an opportunity to check it out and, you know, try to, you know, contribute if they want to. Then I have the Bucs What You Heard podcast, which is on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And my co-host, Michael Pless of Real Bucs Talk. We get together and we just kind of talk about either something big that's happened during the game. We normally touch on the game, but then we kind of talk about the upcoming team. So sometimes we have guests on, but the past couple of weeks, you know, just because of how everything's gone, we've just kind of been me and him. So I will have some guests on as we progress through the season. So it's definitely something to check out.
All right, man. That's awesome, dude. Well, it was awesome talking Bucs football with you. I can't wait to do it again. And I think that's it, man. We're gonna take it out of here.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right, buddy.